so I think this video might upset a few people. For the past 2 years, I've been preserving my tomato harvest by making my own homemade tomato sauce that I store here in my cellar. Now, I showed this in my first video, but what I didn't show you is how I make it. The method I use is not traditional, and I didn't learn it from a nonna, so I'm not claiming to be an authority on this. But even if it's a bit unorthodox, I'm going to show you this method because it's quick and easy, it's manageable for one person, it doesn't require specialized or expensive equipment, and it still tastes delicious. And then I'm going to use this sauce in a seasonal pasta dish with winter veg straight from the garden.
It's salty, it's creamy.
Clearly, there's been a miscommunication.
So let's get into it. So firstly, I don't focus on growing tomato varieties that are traditionally used for sauce making, such as Roma and San Marzano.
What?
Whilst these varieties are nice and fleshy with lower seed and water content, I haven't found them to be top performers in my garden. I grow tomato varieties that thrive in my soil, weather and climatic conditions because healthy plants produce large quantities of great tasting tomatoes, and great tasting tomatoes make great tasting sauce. For example, this variety, Gold Nugget, produces an abundance of sweet fruit and makes a delicious tomato sauce. Most of the varieties I grow are indeterminate, meaning the tomatoes are ripening more gradually throughout the season. So I pick them at peak ripeness and then freeze them until I've got enough to make bulk sauce.
No, you don't understand. You don't understand the good food.
Traditionally, the tomatoes are washed several times in cold water. The blemishes are cut out and sometimes the tomatoes are cored or sliced up. This is a pretty big job and requires many hands on sauce day. So I basically don't do any of this.
What's the matter with you?
Whilst I think this might be important if you're buying a whole bunch of tomatoes, I know exactly where mine come from, so I'm not concerned about chemical residues or bacterial contamination. Plus, I pasteurize my tomato sauce through water bath canning, so there's little risk of spoilage. But more on that later. To start the cooking process, I set up my giant pots on the stove, dump all the tomatoes in and add a splash of extra water so the bottom doesn't burn. As they heat up, the tomatoes split open and release a lot of water, so you don't actually need to add much.
What was that?
I continuously stir until the pots have come to a boil, and any large tomatoes that haven't split yet I cut with scissors. Given my tomato varieties are more watery than traditional sauce tomatoes, I let them simmer for about 15 minutes after boiling to reduce, and then I add salt to taste. Traditionally at this stage the tomatoes would be decanted, strained and run through a Passatutto to drain off some of the water and separate the skin and seeds from the flesh. Now, here's where it gets most controversial and where some people might get offended.
No. Look, it's terrible.
I know, it's not the way and the resulting sauce isn't very thick, but look, it's quick and it takes me all of 3 minutes. I use the equipment I have in my kitchen, you could use a blender if you have one, and none of the tomato goes to waste. We really like the texture of this sauce and we don't find that the seeds add any bitterness. So once it's blended, it's done and it's ready to be canned. Canning is the term used for preserving food by sealing it in an airtight container. But despite what the word may suggest, it's typically done using glass jars. These tall ones are old jars from store-bought passata, and these wider ones are weck jars that are designed especially for home canning. There are a few ways you can can, but the way I seal my jars is by using the water bath method. This involves completely submerging the jars in water and bringing the water to the boil for a period of time. The reason why this process works so well to preserve the contents is that it seals the jar and pasteurizes the ingredients at the same time. And that's it. When you store your sauce in a cool and preferably dark place, your sauce will last a year or more and you'll be able to tap into that summer flavour in the throes of winter. So now I'm going to harvest some winter veg for Maddie and I from the garden for lunch. And I'm making cannelloni, which is a long pasta tube filled with ricotta, greens, butternut squash and leeks. And then we're going to cover it with our tomato sauce and cheese and then bake it in the oven. So in this dish I'm using spring onion, pumpkin, leeks, parsley, Tuscan kale, wild chard, red spinach, mozzarella, parmesan, ricotta, cannelloni and of course our tomato sauce. For the cannelloni filling, I saute off some chopped leeks and cut the pumpkin into cubes. Then I add the pumpkin in with those leeks to cook with some water.
Clearly, there's been a miscommunication. That is way too much water. We're not boiling.
Well, that's what I thought we were doing,
Which-
but not too much water.
That looks better.
In with the ricotta, I add some finely chopped spring onion, wild spinach, kale and chard. I season with salt, pepper and some nutmeg. And I add some garlic and finely chopped parsley.
Oh, good. It's salty, it's creamy,
Who are you, Jamie Oliver?
it's delicious.
Once the pumpkin and leek mix is really soft and cooked through, I add some grated parmesan and combine with the ricotta mix. Then I get the sauce ready by adding some garlic, parsley, salt and pepper, and then I pour it into the base of the baking dish. I fill the cannelloni tubes with the mix, cover with more of the tomato sauce, and add some grated cheese on top. And I use mozzarella for this. A bit more parsley on top, and then I bake it in the oven for 30 minutes until the pasta is cooked and the cheese is golden.
That is good. The pumpkin's really nice in it.
Yeah, pumpkin is really good.
And the leeks.
So I hope I've inspired you to give tomato sauce making a go to preserve your harvest. Follow Nonna's method or experiment with your own. Either way, when you're using homegrown produce, it's hard for it to not be delicious. If you enjoyed the video, give me a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. But who was the real head chef? Head chef was off camera.